Thank you both for joining us today. I'm just going to take a minute to tell everybody a bit more about you, and then we'll dive right in. So, Burt Jones and Maureen Shimlock are award-winning marine life photographers whose assignments have taken them around the world to portray diverse subjects, including the world's longest underwater cave in Mexico and nesting sea snakes in Borneo. Their photographs have been published internationally, and Sea Secret, a collection of their photographs, was honored with the Benjamin Franklin Award as the best book printed worldwide. Burt and Maureen's lively and informative teaching style and their Stop Taking Pictures and Start Creating Images seminar, which they present on their scuba safaris, have helped hundreds of marine life photographers improve their technique. Burt and Maureen are renowned critter spotters, and in their images often reveal habits and habitats of creatures many people would never see for themselves. In June 2008, they began working with Conservation International as consultants on sustainable marine tourism. Burt and Maureen's long-term project is to explore, photograph, and to produce guidebooks and website content for the remote and uncharted dive sites around Raja Ampat and the rest of the Bird's Head Seascape in West Papua. Their guidebook, Diving Indonesia's Raja Ampat, was released in late 2009, and a revised and expanded sequel, Diving Indonesia's Bird's Head Seascape, was published in late 2011. And if you'd like to learn more, and we'll put the link in the comments afterwards, you can check out their website and learn more about their scuba safari programs at secretseavisions.com. And I'll put that in so you can all check it out later. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for joining us, and I can't wait to see this presentation because this is one of my favorite places in the world.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people.
Unfortunately, you're not alone.
It should be. It should be.
We were for a long time.
That's the
point. Thank you. Thank you for having us, Michael. It's an honor to be here.
Great. All right. Well, whenever you're ready, you jump right in and share your screen, and we'll get right to it.
The share screen here, right?
Yeah.
Share that. And then we'll go to this. That.
There you go.
Are we there?
We're there.
Looks perfect. You're all good.
Right.
Don't say that word.
Perfect. Don't go to perfect yet. Let's wait till we're done.
Closest we're going to get.
Right.
Well, as Michael and Alex said, we have been very blessed to have been able to explore the Bird's Head Seascape more than most. We got there early, and we've been there often. And we're going to jump right in and I'll tell you a little bit about our exploration. But first, we want to introduce you to really what the Bird's Head is all about. I think a lot of people maybe don't even know the term Bird's Head Seascape. Everybody's heard of Raja Ampat, but they may not be quite familiar with what's going on. So we'll take you on a little journey, and then we'll talk about our actual exploration. So why is it called the Bird's Head Seascape, for heaven's sakes? Well, this is the island, as you see here, this is the island of New Guinea, which is composed of the country on the eastern side of Papua New Guinea, and then on the western side, you have Indonesia. That used to be called Irian Jaya, and it's now divided into two provinces called Papua and West Papua. West Papua is where we'll be concentrating our work tonight. And if you look at this island, it sort of looks, to me anyway, it looks a lot like a turkey. The head there on the left, right there,
does.
Right there at West Papua, right? And then it's got the little waddle underneath, you know, and then it comes on down.
He demonstrated. I did not.
There's the feet, you know, and this is the tail. And anyway, this is what we term the bird's head. So the areas we're going to are all inscribed in the circle I'm showing you right here. We'll get you a little closer and show you exactly what we're talking about. So now we've moved up to the bird's head there on the western tip of the island of New Guinea, the Indonesian side. And we're going to be concentrating on three major areas, which you can see highlighted on the map there. You've got Raja Ampat, Cendrawasih Bay, and Triton Bay. These three regions comprise what's called the Bird's Head Seascape. This was established by a group of NGOs and governments, ministries in 2004. It is the heart of the Coral Triangle. The Coral Triangle, as most of you know, is comprised of the Solomons, New Guinea, Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines. And this is really the bullseye of it all. It's the global epicenter of marine biodiversity. There's more of every kind of everything there than anywhere else as far as tropical marine life goes. 225,000 square kilometers. That's about the size of France. And it's protected by a network of 26 marine protected areas.
There's probably more science, more conservation, more protection going on here for an area of its size than any place else in the world.
And the work is not just done in the water. Tremendous amount of the land has been set aside for preservation. It's the largest part of Indonesia that's actually set aside, which is pretty cool. It's comprised of 2,500 of the 18,000 islands in Indonesia. The latest count, according to Dr. Mark Erdman, is 1,864 species of fish. That's a pretty good number.
Incredible.
600 and some odd species of coral, which covers literally 3/4 of the world's coral species can be found in Raja Ampat and the Bird's Head Seascape.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
Especially like people from the Caribbean that might be looking in. There's 200 species of coral in the entire Caribbean. On any snorkel in Raja Ampat, you'll see that many species of coral. It's just phenomenal. 17 species of cetaceans, and the Coral Triangle there. This is the first shark and marine sanctuary in the Coral Triangle, and this is actually moved into Indonesia. The rest of Indonesia is now set up as a manta ray sanctuary. So a lot of work being done here, and much of the work that is being done here is unique and the firsts. You know, it just keeps going that way. It's home to some of the world's most extensive mangrove forests and seabeds, which support dugongs, juvenile fish, crocodiles, and provides protection and food for nearly 750,000 people. It has the world's largest Pacific nesting beaches for leatherbacks there on the left, and has regionally significant nesting sites for the other three, green olive and hawksback. You see a hawksback there on the right. Hawksbill, hawksback. Yeah, combine the two, you know? This is an amazing little poster we've got here. We will eventually be for sale, and it's done by a really cool artist called Nate Wilson. And he's been working with Dr. Erdman. And they put together a poster of all the endemic fishes that you can find in the Bird's Head Seascape. Up to today, there's 57 different endemic species that you will only see if you go to the Bird's Head, which is pretty impressive as well. Whale sharks, we've got whale sharks out throughout the area. Cendrawasih and Triton Bay are real meccas for whale shark people. We have over 210 individuals in our whale shark database, all identified. We've got tags on a bunch of them. If you go to the website, you can actually follow 10 of them live, which is pretty cool. The tags transmit. And one of the things we're most proud of is our work on mantas. We've got over 1,500 reef mantas and 1,000 oceanic mantas in the database.
And we'd like to encourage people, when you dive in the Bird's Head, you know, everyone's looking for the artistic shot, of course, but the ID shots are taken from the belly. So every now and then look up if a manta is going over you and shoot and send it to us. It's possible that it's one that hasn't been identified before. You'll be able to name it, etc. So we're really looking for that data to be able to track these animals and also to extend their protection.
And the great thing about it is both species are on the rise due to our conservation efforts there. So everybody that goes there and pays those fees, you're doing your part to protect the mannas. But give us a little more. Give us those ID shots. We've got a couple of endemic birds of paradise there. The red on the left and Wilson's on the right. Raj is certainly not just about, or the bird's head is not just about being underwater. There's extraordinary snorkeling for people who don't dive. There's kayaking, all kinds of land tours. Another unique feature about the region is every area in the Chenderwassi, Raja Ampat, Triton Bay, all have their unique endemic walking sharks, their epaulet sharks, which is a very cool thing as well. How does all this work and how is it protected? Well, it's a pretty unprecedented relationship between the coastal communities, local and national governments, international, local NGOs, academic institutions. All this ensures the sustainable management of these 26 MPAs. And we gain an MPA or two every year. More and more of the people see what the benefits are, and more of the area is becoming protected.
I'll just add that in the early 2000s, when we started this was the beginning of the realization that local people needed to be involved in conservation for it to work. And this is truly a success story because a lot of the local people, like Bert said, have seen the benefits through employment and a lot of other different reasons, and are all for the conservation and protection.
Each MPA has rangers and they patrol, and they protect both the terrestrial and marine life, and they're funded by the entrance fees that we all pay, all these visitors pay, which you can see. That's my most recent environmental tag, and that's what goes to fund the rangers and to keep the park protected. So don't try to get away with not paying your fee. It's important.
That kind of doesn't happen.
Right. For once, you're going to encourage everyone to pay those darn fees.
Yeah, it actually does some good in this case.
It sure does. Yeah, that's great.
And of course, we have over 200 internationally acclaimed dive sites, and the area truly is a scuba diving heaven. There's just no doubt about it. So let's get into the exploration. These are 4 unlikely characters. One of them's unfortunately no longer with us. I'm on the left there. And
that's
then
actually their right, I think. I don't know.
However you see that. Is that your left or right? Am I on your left or right?
You're looking at this.
You are actually on our left, so it still shows
Okay.
correctly.
Okay.
You're
Right.
good.
The big guy there in the sort of in the middle, he takes up most of the middle anyway. That's the Larry Smith. He's no longer with us. He's a legendary dive guide and is an old friend of ours. The tall, handsome guy that's losing his hair there is Dr. Mark Erdman. Dr. Erdman is in by and large,
he's the energy behind.
He's the energy behind the Bird's Head Seascape.
Put it that way, yeah.
And the little short, dumpy guy on the right, he'd appreciate that if he was listening. His name, Dr. Gerald Allen. He's the world's leading tropical marine ichthyologist, and he's been a good friend of ours since the Komodo days, back in the early 90s.
So this was when the idea got hatched.
This is in 2006, right here, when Larry introduced me to Mark, but Jerry already knew me, and Jerry encouraged Mark to take Maureen and I on as consultants. And so these are the major characters that got us involved. Larry did a tremendous amount of exploration out there as well. While we had done a lot of work in Komodo, he'd done a lot of work there, and we exchanged back and forth.
Just like the realization that local people had to be involved, Mark also realized that tourism needed to be a huge component of conservation issues. And in order to manage that, he decided that he wanted a guidebook published.
Yeah.
And that's why he hired us.
So we began diving there in 2002. But like Maureen just said, our jobs and this is our title, Sustainable Marine Tourism Consultants, began in 2008 when Mark actually put his signature on the paper and hired us to produce the first guidebook. So at that time, in 2008, there were only a few liveaboards operating out there. Before the pandemic shut everything down, there was over 100.
That's another issue, but we'll talk about that
We'll talk about it another time. But these few liveaboards were all basically diving the same popular spots that had been, promoted in the magazines. And so what we wanted to do was to expand the horizon. So that CI chartered us a boat for an exploratory survey. We scouted over 150 new dive areas, new dive sites, where most of the charter boats had never been before. And our mandate there was to expand the range expand the range of the liveaboard's itineraries by finding new dive sites and then publishing a dive guide to help them get there. And so we had a small boat, small liveaboard. We had these the scooters were almost as big as the boats. And Maureen and I and 2 dive guides spent all day in the water for about 3 weeks. We did 7 or 8 dives a day, scouting, and most of it wasn't as good as most of what everyone sees is.
Some days.
And this is the point of exploration. A lot of people think they know we do a lot.
Oh, we want to go with you, I mean, I'm sure, Michael, you get this all the time, oh, take me with you. Well, actually, most of the time it's kind of boring because you don't find anything and you're just exhausted. Some days you can't do anything but, play around on the deck.
This is the good doctors, Erdman and Alan.
I mean, you really have to stay limber for ichthyology. It's a big deal,
There's a lot of just riding around. Don't tell Jerry, but that picture.
So let's talk about each individual area a little bit and the features of each one. Raja Ampat is a very, very big place. 4 kings Raja means king. Ampat in the Bahasa Indonesia is 4, and that is for the 4 major islands of Wageo, Batanta, Salawati, and Miso. We don't dive much on Salawati. It's a flat island. Most of the diving is around around Wageo, Batanta, and Miso. They could actually be treated as 2 different itineraries, and we very much suggest that, to do a northern itinerary and a southern itinerary. It's hard to see the whole place on an 11-day dive trip, minimum of 14, just to even get a quick look at things. There is a lot of activity here. Should have put in the slide with the through flow. Mm-hmm. But there is a tremendous amount of water flow flowing from the Pacific up here through these islands and down into the Indian Ocean. This is the corridor. The Dampier Strait is the corridor here for all those cetacean species that migrate through.
And the coral larva and the fish larva, and that's what does it. I mean, that's what brings all the life to these islands, are the currents.
There's 3 tectonic plates that meet right here. Currents converge. And I like to say, when God said I think it's the 4th day, when God said, "Let there be fish," this is where he was standing, right here. So Raja Ampat.
Makes sense.
Most of the diving, when we first were going out there and when we started the books, was being done in the Dampier Straits and down a little bit around the southeast Miso. So we started diving way up in these areas, out in here, over here, way out into here, where the boats hadn't been. And we found a lot of really good sites along the way. incredible things. Before 2009, most visitors came to Raja for its spectacular coral reefs and witnessing its outstanding fish biomass. I don't know of a place, I've dived a lot of places, I know Michael has too, and there's certainly not a place that has consistently over a large area has such gorgeous infrastructure and such incredible fish biomass. It's just outstanding.
But
well, and there's also iconic marine life, right? Wobbegong sharks are almost certainly a given on a trip and almost a given on every dive. And as we said, we have a lot of those manta rays, those beautiful, beautiful things that we all love and can't get enough of. But back to the but. If anything, especially at that time, if anything, Raja lacked good critter sites. And of course, that was one of the things that we were trying to find as well, is good critter sites. So off Batanta Island, which was that little one there that sort of defined the Dampier Strait, on the south side, we finally started finding some dark sand and whatnot. And we've got a number of sites along there, but these were the first real muck dive sites found in Raja Ampat, and they were called Algae Patch and Happy Ending and Diversity. And finally, we started to see frogfish and a myriad, not just a few nudibranchs, but lots of nudibranchs.
So it became a much more well-rounded destination.
Yeah. And the cephalopods, we found Happy Ending, the first we dropped in on Happy Ending, and the first thing it was the last dive of the trip. We couldn't dive where we wanted to go, so we said, hey, let's try this new spot. Dropped in. The first thing I see is this mimic octopus. Second thing I see is the flamboyant cuttlefish. Happy Ending.
That's a lucky dive site, that's for sure.
That was a good dive site. Still a good dive site.
Still a good place.
Yeah.
And then we even eventually ended up finding the Holy Grail, the right there at Algae Patch.
Yeah, they found some rhinopias there too.
And there've been a few of
So
them.
you can go from whale sharks to manta rays to schools of fish to rhinopias to nudibranchs, all in one dive trip. And that's what makes Raja so outstanding.
But besides the reefs,
lots of other stuff.
There's lots of other stuff. There's lots of caves. You can dive in these incredible caves up in the north in Urani Island. And then there's beautiful caves you can float through down in the Misol area. There's tremendous amount to do, even if you're not a diver. And of course, there's endless, spectacular, vibrant, pristine reefs to explore and to sit in front of and just ogle.
Just blow your mind.
And before we leave Raja and get into the next couple of sections, let's just show you a couple of pictures. No particular theme, just some of our favorites through the years. Raja is really known for massive schools of sweet lips. And again, the wobbegong sharks there and all the glass fish. If you go between in the latter part of the year, in October, November, you get the glassfish blooms, and they're really beautiful. A couple of fish pictures. Maureen and I sort of gravitated more to wide angle and fish portraiture than anything else. I'm always looking to get fish in action. The guy on the left is a comet, and the guy on the right is a splendid dotty back, which is one of my favorite species. And this was just off the jetty at Misol Eco Resort a couple of years back, of a massive school of oxeye scad. Anyway, the results of all that exploration and finding all those new sites, taking all these pictures, was Indonesia's first dive guide. Well, actually, it wasn't the first, it was the second, I guess. Anyway, Diving Indonesia's Raja Ampat was published in 2009. It sold out quicker than any of us could even imagine and became really sort of the handbook for all the new liveaboard flocking to the area. And it got things going. It did exactly what Mark wanted it to do. So we were real happy about that. In 11, that came out and sort of toward the end of 9. In 11, Mark said he wanted us to go explore the rest of the Bird's Head and focus on the 2 other major areas because he wanted to expand the focus and produce another book. And so off we went to Chinderwassi, and we'd already been to Triton a few times. But anyway, we chartered another boat and we explored Chinderwassi for 3 weeks. And the results of that exploration was a liveaboard diving itinerary. We found a good 30, 40 sites that the boats could go to. And then we also helped develop this the whale shark experience, which became the rage for quite a while. And it's still very, very popular. Makes this destination sort of what it is. But, you know, it's not just that. And a lot of surprises await you. Chinderwassi was basically a marine lake during the last ice age. When the water went down, Chinderwassi sort of became isolated. And what ended up happening there was all the fish species that were in the shallow water died off. And smaller fish that normally live deeper, came up. And then fish that were already there the populations became isolated. And you started to have all this endemism. And of those 57 fishes that are endemics, 30 some of them, almost half of them, are found in Chinderwassi Bay. So you've got the Chinderwassi Bay fairy wrasse there on the left, and one we're especially proud of is Maureen's damselfish. This is Chrysoptera maureenae on the right.
How cool!
Yeah, pretty
Very cool.
cool.
It's very cool.
You know you've made it when there's a
Yeah,
fish
it's
named
kind of a
after
weird
you.
feeling, you know, that there's this thing on Earth that's gonna that has your name, right?
That's pretty
I'm
amazing.
temporal, it's not. You know?
And these are a couple of the surprise things that these are fish that we have on our regular reefs, our regular tropical reef, but you never see these fish because they normally live below 60, 70 meters. But because of the way the last ice age affected that marine lake, and then all of these fish came up shallower, they're still shallow. So you see these beautiful, the black and white Burgess's butterfly. You see the ornate snappers, angelfish, the males on the top there, and a number of other species that normally you don't see on a normal dive into a tropical destination like this.
They're there, but you don't see them because they're too deep. And in Chinderwassi, they're shallow, so they're observable, photographable.
Dr. Jerry Allen likes to call this the Galapagos of the Pacific. He thinks it the
Galapagos of Indonesia.
Yeah, of
Galapagos
Indonesia.
is in the
Excuse me.
Pacific.
The Galapagos of Indonesia. He feels like that there's so much interesting science and diversion here that it's really, really his favorite spot of the 3. And just before we leave, just again, a couple of our favorite shots.
Some good macro places there as well.
Yeah.
We're always looking for that. You're going to round out your dive experience.
A couple of little night squids and a
Tiger shrimp.
tiger shrimp there. And can't leave without one more picture of a whale shark. Can't get enough of those guys. So, down to the 3rd spot, Triton Bay. We've been visiting there quite a bit since 2006 with Larry. Larry loved the place, and there's even a dive site down there named in his memory. So we'd been there quite a few times with him. I'd spent 6 weeks with him at one point, all down there. So we knew that area pretty well, enough to already create an itinerary. But we'll tell you a little about it. It's an interesting place in that it's on the mainland and it's in a big bay, and that big bay is of course affected by a lot of rivers. It gets a lot of runoff. you end up with very little hard coral because the hard coral veligers can't survive in the brackish surface water.
It's too much fresh water.
Too
for
much
them.
fresh water. Visibility is usually not stellar, but they've got some soft corals down there like you've never seen.
Mind blowing.
And mind blowing. And Triton Bay initially, much like Raja, was known for this. You know, it was the big scene, and it was what you see when you first stick your head under the water, and it was unmistakable. But of course, now we've been diving there for well over a decade, and we've now got a really nice little resort down there that's done a whole lot as far as helping with the politics and doing the exploration as well. And now there's a tremendous amount of macro critters showing up, and they've got their own whale shark experiences just as good as the one over in Chindrawassi.
Yeah, and there's just one dive site that you can just go and sit as long as you're air lasts and watch flasher wrasse.
It's 4 different species and all these interbred mixes of, and we call it Flasher Beach, and it's just rich with flasher wrasse. Of course, they're a bit of a challenge to photograph.
Yeah.
Again, all the attractions are not just underwater. This is rock art. There is an area there in Triton where the walls of this run for 2 or 3 miles of ancient hieroglyphics, 5,000 years old. It's just awe-inspiring.
Yeah, they don't need an
incredible.
explanation of that. I'll give them one if they want. How it happened, right?
Yes, I want to hear all about that.
Okay. It is pretty interesting, but anyway.
These aren't the most beautiful pictures necessarily, but these are 2 things that I had never seen that we both saw and found in Triton Bay. And on the left here, you've got a leopard anemone, and it's a commensal shrimp that lives on that anemone. And we were sure it was new to science, and turned out it hadn't been described but for a couple of years, but it actually was first found in Japan, of all places. And we still haven't found another one in this color phase. We found them in other color phases. We never found a black and white one. And on the right are 2 flatworms, which is not any big deal, but you notice that the one is reared up and it's got these white things sticking out. Well, they're about to mate, and they mate by the guy on the left slams these pointed appendages into the body anywhere of the flatworm down below and passes gametes.
Who knew?
I didn't even know what was going on until I read about it. So anyway, I wanted to throw these in. I thought it was an interesting.
But besides all that, so you gotta look beyond the soft coral. It's a fascinating place.
But there is that.
Yeah.
It's just
hard to look beyond this. It really is. Most of the time, you're just like your mouth is open.
I mean, it's fish soup. If there's a lot of biomass in Raja, there's a few sites in Triton, then it's hard to see the reef for the fish.
Mm.
And that soft coral is just phenomenal. You don't see much hard coral at all down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
So after all that work, some people don't think it was work, but I assure you it was work. In late 2011, this book came out, Diving Indonesia's Bird's Head Seascape, and it's out of print now as well. But we knew that we couldn't every 2 years keep publishing books. And we realized that the books had a very limited audience. So with Mark's help, we put together the Bird's Head Seascape website, which expanded the focus of the information available dramatically. And it's become this growing repository for all things related to the Bird's Head. It's much more than tourism news. There's everything that goes on in the MPAs, all the government official
The
documents.
species description, the library is just very dense. So anything that's been published that we know about or that people send us, we put in there. The scientific descriptions, if you want to read all of those, it's very dense, and you can find out a lot of
You could
information.
spend days there. The maps we're really proud of the maps, and they got all the dive sites and descriptions of the sites and all that, just like the books had. So it's very comprehensive, and it keeps me busy, that's for sure. So, but we're not done. We're not done. We got more to explore.
Yeah, we thought we were going to be going out there in a couple of weeks, but probably not.
So you can see that there's this quite a gap of ocean. Between Misol and Triton Bay, and a lot of the boats pass through here, and it's a couple of day trip to get there. And so we're constantly looking for new sites, and we've got a few sites out in the Pisongs and a few sites here along the coastline. But what we're going to do, what Mark wants us to do, is to make a concentrated effort to explore the Pisongs, which you can see much closer here on the right, and the area around there's Fok, and this area along the coastline for muck sites, and see if we can't come up with another itinerary so the boats can spend a good week or so on the way transitioning between one destination and the other. So that's still coming, and we're real excited about that. That's for sure.
Yeah,
And
that's very
who
exciting.
All right, guys.
Ask away.
Ask away.
Okay. Oh, that was so cool. Thank you for sharing that. Amazing stuff. I'm just going to put us back to our normal sharing so that we can all see each other. Okay, cool.
Right.
So you've both obviously been spending a lot of time in this area. Do you have a favorite spot, or maybe a top 3 favorite spots that you could just go back to over and over and over again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much any one of them.
Dharam,
Yeah.
the Dharam Islands.
Which
Okay.
are sort of south and east of southeast Misol out there. We love it out there. If you're a wide angle person, you want to be off of southeast Misol. It's just outrageous. Or, up away from the Dampier Strait, Eagle Rock. A lot of those places are fantastic.
We also really like
spot.
an area they call the Blue Water Mangroves, which
Yeah, that's
unfortunately had a
incredible.
pocket attack a few years back, but it is just
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
incredible.
And
place.
I don't think we're done with the muck stuff
Yep.
there. We just
Yeah.
need to look,
Yeah.
more. So
There's still
For sure.
we're trying to get funding to spend some time in the what's called the Fifth King, and that's around Kofiau, and another set of islands called Bo, that are sort of midway up on the west side of that whole area. So there's a lot more to be done. There's a whole lot coming as far as governing and licensing, and they're trying to get their handle on all the liveaboards. There's too many of them, and trying to manage all that. And it's growing, and it's gotten a buzz now. We did our jobs too well in some ways, and there's so many people
Yeah.
going. There's so many people going now that tourism in general needs management, or before it, we love it to death, so to speak. So there's a lot that's going to be coming down in the next couple of years as the governments get sorted through what areas can be used for what, and there's going to be zonations and things like that. But all of it, I think, will be for the good. And
Yeah.
We're getting liveaboards out on the fringe where they belong, and find new stuff all the time. I mean, that's what it's all about, is being where nobody else is, and finding things that nobody else has seen. And I guess in many ways we're adventure junkies that got lucky and found our way to conservation.
It's pretty great. Michael, your sound is weird. That's you. Okay,
Michael.
hold on.
Okay.
I was wondering what that weird noise was.
I thought it was your
Yeah,
phone or something.
You might have too many things on. I know, I thought it was maybe some weird interference thing happening too, but no.
No.
Yeah, no, we actually, so Michael, you sound kind of like a chipmunk. It's all chirpy.
Exactly.
I thought for a moment I might have been going crazy, but
Maybe can he type his question?
okay, Michael, you might have to type. Yeah, you might have to type in because we can't hear you right.
If he liked it, if he could give us
Right.
a thumbs up.
All right, all good. While Michael's working on questions, yeah. We've definitely all been noticing in the last 10 years, especially how many more liveaboards just keep showing up every year. And of course, it's good that there are people going and that there's tourism, but managing it is going to be difficult. And I wonder, do you think there's going to be a limit to the liveaboards? Like, are they going to cap the liveaboards, or is it just going to continue growing?
Yeah, probably. I mean, a lot of this is being sorted out now, but I think a lot of it is going to be more scheduled. And
Sure.
that, so that you don't have 5 boats waiting around on one dive site. They're also
Exactly.
talking about a mooring system and putting instrumentation on the boats where there's someone who can control and knows who's there, where, and what, when, right? And unfortunately, if everybody's going to enjoy this place and that's what we want, that's the way it has to be.
It's going to have to be managed somewhat. There's got to be.
Sure.
There have always been limits on the number of liveaboards allowed, but those limits are sort of they're flexible. Let's put it that way. And
right, yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It's time to make some inflexible rules, and I think everybody involved.
From the top to the bottom, everybody realizes that something has to be done to get a grip on just keeping people happy, because when you got 4 or 5 boats on the same site, people aren't happy, and they want
nobody's happy.
Everybody wants you to be happy.
Nobody's happy, and you've got local people, and they want their homestay customers, their guests, to be able to enjoy places. So there is going to be some kind of zonation and regulation. Got to be.
Yeah, it's just there's it's when we first started going, there was
nobody.
a few hundred visitors a year back in 2002.
That must have been kind of incredible to just be able to go anywhere.
Yeah, it went from like 400 to 4,000 after we published the book, like in a year or something. Even after, and that was like in 2000. I know. And we're like, what do we do? Yeah.
Good but bad. Yeah. Oh, that's fun. Michael, can we hear you yet?
Am I back yet?
Yeah. There you are.
I just want curious to know, since you've been there since 2002, 2003, that's about the time I've just started going there. Is there any you've seen any significant change through the years?
Good and bad?
Yeah, good and bad.
You want the good ones and bad?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, fish biomass has increased.
Yes.
The number of sharks that you see have increased
a lot,
dramatically. So those and the big fish have increased. Napoleon wrasse have increased. All that is much better. Now there are.
I just want to say, like around Misol now, because of their sort of private marine protection area, you'll see sharks on almost every single dive. Whereas before they built the resort, it was a shark fishing camp, and there were no sharks except that.
Oh boy!
So that's a big plus.
Yes, I remember in the early 2000s, there's a lot of dynamite fishing going on. There's hardly see any sharks in those days.
Yes.
There's no dynamite fishing any longer. Those rangers, they keep that from happening. It's finally gotten the momentum with the Indonesian government. It's the second most visited destination tourism-wise in the next to Bali. So it's important now to the big boys in Jakarta as well that things stay well. But yes, on certain sites there is diver damage. There is no doubt about that. That there are sites that we've seen that definitely have diver damage. You especially see that in the Dampier Strait, where there are so many snorkelers and people who really, excuse me, don't have an appreciation for the life cycle of the animals that they're looking at. They don't understand that standing on coral is damages the animal that they're looking at, right?
Yeah.
So
It's a matter of limiting the number of divers per day on a given site and who can go there and who can't. And that's one of the reasons we're doing this, so that we can minimize the damage now.
there is some speculation of perhaps setting certain dive sites aside, giving them a moratorium for a year and a half, couple of seasons.
Hoping they'll recover coral
them
and
recover.
fish-wise. The fish don't
Right.
seem to be that much of a problem. It's more the reef
It's corals.
itself, which of
Yeah.
course, if we let that go, then the fish are going to go someplace else too. So
Mhm.
But the manna population is just increasing.
Yeah.
There's so many unprecedented good things that have happened in this area, and it's directly related to protection, and that's all there is to it. If you can protect it, it'll survive and it'll thrive, but you've got to seriously protect it, and sometimes it doesn't make everybody happy, the things you have to do that. That's just life.
Yeah, that's really encouraging to hear, though. It's so nice when things actually get better instead of worse on reefs. So
Well,
that's really great.
Most-
Yeah, right.
most-
Well, especially when you have big predators return. That's so awesome.
yes.
Yeah.
Most questionable. I think the big question everybody want to know, and those listening in, is when you think they can go back.
I think you just told us at the end of the year.
I wish we knew. I mean, right now there's no mechanism for tourists to go at all. We don't know what's going to happen with that. We know that certain places like Bali are suffering greatly because their entire economy is now based on tourism. And I do think that they've got the ear of the government and they're trying to work something out. I don't know if they're going to open up other parts of the country before, Bali opens up, but can we actually fly out to Raja Ampat? And, when that happens, we're not sure.
We feel confident that it will probably happen before the end of the year, but it may well be the last quarter of the year.
Just like what you said, Mike, before it all gets sorted out, and once they have more people vaccinated, and especially I know in Bali they're working on it, and I think they're working on it everywhere, and it's also up in the air, as far as U.S. citizens returning home right now. You have to have a negative test, which is easily attainable, but you have to wait 3 days, and then you have to quarantine on the way in, and not that many people want to add a week or 10 days to their vacation. So all of that's up in the air. We're just going to have to be patient. That's all.
Yeah, it looks like this is going to be a 2-year affair with this COVID virus thing.
Right, what I feel
Yeah,
for-
by the time it's all done,
What I feel for is the local operator and the staff and the crew. Meanwhile, I mean, I'm sure it is a bit of a challenge for them to live through these few months or this year.
We're we don't know the fallout yet for the liveaboard industry. Those boats are expensive just to keep, even with no one on it, right? I mean, you have to keep a skeleton crew. You have to pay to be anchored somewhere, and that, who knows what damage is going to be done by this. As far as resorts go, they now can have domestic tourists are able to travel, and they're able to travel out to Raja Ampat, and there's a lot of Indonesians who love to dive and who are supporting their own tourism industry, which is great.
Yeah, that's great.
But people from all over the world, and there's expats that live there too, that go and dive. But yeah, I mean, everybody's anxious to get back out there again. But the fallout, what's going to happen with certain boats that didn't have that much going on anyway, I don't know.
Yeah, we feel that a lot of the liveaboard will not be able to survive this.
I hope they can.
Which is a
Yeah,
mixed
I'll bet
blessing.
not.
I mean, a lot of good ones will go by the wayside, and a lot of them that were, just getting started that hadn't really, developed a reputation or a clientele, or,
Yeah.
or even maybe even a good itinerary. A lot of those folks go by the wayside, and that may well help the government get a grip on how to manage it. If there's, instead of 100 people trying to, I want one of those 60 licenses. Maybe there'll only be 50 asking for 60 instead of
Right,
150 asking for 60.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So give the
We don't
brief,
know.
Maybe it'll
Kind
work
of the answer. We don't know.
we talked, Dr. Erdman, who, for those of you who don't know, when we met him, he was already working for Conservation International. He was in charge of marine programs, for Conservation International Indonesia. Well, he has since Mark's sort of a rock star in the environmental conservation world, and he's moved up in the world, and now he's in charge of the Conservation International marine programs for the entire Pacific. So he's now based in Auckland, and he divides his time. Roger's not his only focus any longer. He's dealing with all the way out to Guam and everything in between.
There's a lot of
Solomons,
different
New
places.
Zealand, everywhere. So it's what he's done there. Where was I going with this?
I
The point is, Mark is a rock star and fish are really cool. Okay,
No,
good,
I mean,
got
it's
it.
more-
we talk to him. We talk to him frequently, and he knows I'm everything that he knows. I'm telling you, as far as scheduling goes and what's going to happen.
It's frustrating because there's work to be done and we can't get out there and do it.
I made a reference to him
Yeah.
losing his hair. Well, he's lost most of it in this last year.
He's pulled it out.
Pulled it out.
Trying to get back to Indonesia, so we don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I
Bert
think
and
we
the
talked
Marine-
to him maybe summer. I think that's the last time we talked to him about this, and we had him on for a talk, and it was still a little bit too early to tell, how things were going to go,
Right.
and if it was going to be a good thing or a bad thing, more or less with less people around, because I know it was a worry that with less people around, more illegal fishing would be happening, and maybe protections would be lax because there weren't people out there trying to actively patrol. So
did start like that. It actually did.
That's
but
what he
again,
said.
People kind
Yeah.
of brought to what was going on, and the Rangers, they pumped some
Yeah.
money into that.
We have a report every month.
I was so glad to hear
what
that.
the Ranger patrols had found and do. So that's again.
That's
on the
great.
site. And,
very cool. Yeah, that's really a wonderful resource. We'll definitely put up the site for everyone to go check it out. There's
Yeah, I mean, if you're
there's a
thinking
lot
about-
there.
Yeah, if you're thinking about going out there, if you've been out there and there's something you want to find out about, if you're just interested.
Yeah.
You're writing a high
species,
school paper about
Fish descriptions,
It's
whatever.
all there.
Right?
Yeah.
All the fairy wrasse you could possibly want to see. All right,
Yeah.
perfect.
All the numbers and data you could possibly choke on.
It's good stuff.
Any
Well,
any
thanks.
question
Michael,
on the
anything
site
else? Are
yet?
we good?
Can you see any question there?
No, that's it. That's it.
Well, it's so
No,
nice
lots
seeing
of
you,
people have been
Bert
commenting
and
just that they're
Maureen.
really enjoying it. So
Thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you again soon. I hope we get out there together in the near future. Thank you.
Let's see each other in wetsuits next time.
You bet. You bet.
Yes.
Thank
Okay.
you. Cheers.
Oh, wait, Michael, I have one more question. I forgot. I need to hear about the sea snakes. Tell me the sea snake story.
These snakes and Borneo.
I was like, you got to do what? Sea snake nesting Borneo? What?
Oh, I bet
And then you can go. I'm sorry. I had to hear about it.
I don't have that picture. This all happened in Borneo. We were a long time ago in the early 90s.
Right.
And
Uh,
we got involved with a guy who worked with the Chicago Steel
the
Museum.
Field
there.
Museum.
Yeah. All
Yeah,
right.
and so they were trying to figure out where the sea snakes is. It's hard to say it real fast.
Right.
Where the sea snakes will actually lay their eggs, where the nests were.
Right.
At
Yeah.
that time, they didn't know they couldn't find them. So we went out there and we were going to photograph them. And the guy's like, well, you just pick them up and you throw them in this plastic bag, and he had a big plastic garbage bag, and I'm like, well, what?
I'm not sure if I am comfortable with this.
So he was gathering up all these things and throwing them in this black plastic bag and just leaving them there, and that really pissed him off, right?
Oh, for sure.
And I'm like, no, there's no way I'm doing that for Bert. He had
this seems ill-advised.
and force him to do it.
They're very docile. It's funny, and they have to.
Yeah, as long as you don't throw them in a bag.
But it was interesting. I mean, we put radio tags in them and weighed them and sexed them. And,
that's pretty cool.
Interesting project.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was it per chance with Bob Inger? Because he's a big herpetologist and amphibian guy from
this was a while ago. I think.
He was very old. Bob just passed away like a year ago, and he was
he could have been involved because it was been gentleman and might have been, and he spent a lot of time in Borneo with his wife and partner Fuilian because she's from there. So I thought maybe it was them, but involved.
It might have been. That's very cool. All right, I'll have to find out more about this.
Okay.
Okay, that's it. Now you can go.
All right. See you, Bert. See you, Maureen. Thank you so much for joining us.
Bye.
And good luck.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.